Imagine a fairy tale princess. You probably picture her in this, like, beautiful gown, right?
Yeah, maybe riding away in a royal carriage to her happily ever after.
Exactly. But now, I want you to imagine that same princess being dragged out of her carriage, stripped bare, and stabbed repeatedly until she is just covered in blood.
Oh man, it is so brutal.
It is. And the craziest part is that the person inflicting all this violence, he isn't the villain of the story, he's actually the hero. So, welcome to the unvarnished, completely original world of the Brothers Grimm.
It really shatters that protective, sanitized illusion we usually associate with bedtime stories.
Oh, completely.
Because when you look at the original folklore, you are stepping into this psychological and social minefield. These stories, they were never meant to just comfort children. They were meant to grapple with the darkest parts of human nature and society.
Which is exactly our mission for this deep dive. Today, we are unpacking a single fascinating source text from early German folklore. It's called Hans mein Igel, or in English, Hans my Hedgehog.
Such a wild story.
It really is. It's a story about rejection, the brutal reality of broken promises, and just visceral revenge. It completely redefines what a fairy tale can be. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, to understand the sheer impact of this tale, we have to recognize that these old oral traditions, they act as mirrors for the people who told them.
Right.
They reflect the very real, raw anxieties of the 19th century agrarian societies where they originated. So this specific text, it explores how a community treats severe physical differences.
The desperation for social conformity, right?
Exactly. Conformity and the inescapable ironclad nature of a spoken contract.
So the story kicks off with an inciting incident that is just deeply uncomfortable. We're introduced to this wealthy farmer. He has land, he has money, but he doesn't have a child.
Which was a big deal back then.
A huge deal. When he goes into town, the other farmers relentlessly mock him for it. I mean, they straight up bully him. So he reaches a breaking point, goes home in a fit of rage, and declares, "I want a child, even if it's a hedgehog."
And that moment is crucial because his wish, it isn't driven by a genuine, loving desire to nurture a human life.
Right, it's just anger.
It's driven entirely by wounded pride. I mean, in those agrarian communities, being a childless farmer wasn't just a personal sorrow. It was a massive social and economic deficit.
Because you didn't have a built-in workforce.
Exactly. You had no heir, no labor, and therefore you had less social capital. His wish is essentially just a desperate demand for status. He just wants to silence his critics.
Well, the universe takes him literally. His wife gives birth, and the baby is a hedgehog on the top half and a human boy on the bottom half.
It's just such a striking image.
It really is. And the immediate reaction from the parents is just pure devastation. The mother looks at this newborn baby and says to her husband, "See, you have cursed us."
Notice the phrasing there, though. She doesn't say, "Our child is cursed."
Yeah, she doesn't say, "We have a difficult road ahead."
No, she says, "You have cursed us." The child's humanity is instantly erased in that moment. He's positioned not as a vulnerable baby needing care, but as this, punishment inflicted upon the parents.
Because his existence is an inconvenience to their social standing.
Precisely.
And the rejection just cascades from there. I mean, they can't even find a godparent for the baptism.
Yeah, they literally have to just ask the priest to do it.
Right, and the priest casually names him Hans mein Igel, Hans my Hedgehog. And the physical reality of his condition is just heartbreaking. Because his top half is covered in quills, he can't nurse without pricking his mother.
Which severs that maternal bond immediately.
Completely. And he can't even be put in a normal bed because his spikes would ruin the linens. So they throw some straw behind the stove, and that is where Hans lives.
For 8 long years.
Wow. 8 years. Just lying there on the floor. And while he's lying there, his father is actively, consciously wishing he would just die.
It's so dark. And the stove, by the way, is such a powerful symbol here.
How so?
Well, in a traditional farmhouse, the hearth is the center of the home. It's the source of warmth, light, and sustenance. But Hans is placed behind it.
Oh, wow. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, he is kept in the shadows. He has proximity to the warmth, but he is completely excluded from the family circle. It's this ultimate representation of how societies historically, and often still today, hide away anything or anyone that doesn't fit the accepted norm.
You hide the anomaly so the social order isn't disrupted.
Exactly.
It's kind of like a toxic corporate acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
Like when a CEO demands a merger just to look powerful to his rivals, but completely ignores whether the two companies actually fit together.
That's a really great analogy.
Right. The farmer demanded the title of father, but he refused to accept the reality of raising this specific child. It's like a dark monkey's paw situation. He got exactly what he asked for, and he reacted with total neglect.
And that neglect, it ultimately forces Hans to adapt in a way that alters the entire trajectory of the story.
Right, because after 8 years of staring at the wall behind a stove, something snaps. He doesn't ask for a better bed or like a seat at the table. He asks for an escape route.
He's had enough.
Yeah. So the father is going to the market in the city, taking practical orders, meat and rolls for his wife, slippers for the maid, and almost as an afterthought, he asks Hans what he wants, and Hans asks for a doodle sack of bagpipes.
The choice of the bagpipes is so fascinating to me.
Why bagpipes specifically?
Well, in medieval and early modern European culture, the bagpipe was heavily associated with peasants, shepherds, and outsiders.
So it wasn't exactly high-class music.
Not at all. It was loud, chaotic, and sometimes even linked to the demonic or the untamed wild. It is the absolute antithesis of polite, courtly music. So by requesting it, Hans is embracing his identity as an outcast.
He is asking for an instrument of loud, unapologetic self-expression.
Yes, he's owning his weirdness.
So he gets the bagpipes, and then he makes this incredibly bizarre, specific demand. He tells his father to go to the blacksmith and have his rooster, his Gökkelhahn, fitted with horseshoes.
A rooster with horseshoes, it's just brilliant.
It's so weird. He promises that if his father does this, he will ride away and never come back. So the father, who is obviously thrilled to be rid of him, gets the rooster shot, and Hans literally climbs onto this bird.
Which is just a crazy visual.
Right. He takes some pigs and donkeys to herd, and he rides off into the deep forest. And for years, he sits high up in a tree, straddling this horseshoe-wearing rooster, playing beautiful bagpipe music, while his herd of pigs grows massive on the forest floor.
The imagery is completely surreal, but it actually operates on a very deliberate, symbolic logic.
Wait, really? Because it feels almost comical. I mean, a half-hedgehog boy on a rooster.
It definitely does to us today, but the text treats it with deadpan seriousness. Think about it. Hans was rejected by human society. He couldn't sleep in a human bed or eat human food, so he leaves and builds an anti-kingdom that operates on entirely different rules.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah, this specific triad of items, the rooster, the bagpipes, the pigs, it's a brilliant subversion of the society that rejected him. Putting iron horseshoes on a domestic yard bird, that elevates the mundane to the martial. It's a mockery of a knight's noble war horse.
Wow. And the bagpipes are his royal court music then?
Exactly. And the pigs, in agrarian societies, pigs were a primary measure of liquid wealth.
Oh, right. So he's getting rich out there.
Very rich. He is building immense independent economic power in the wild. He has basically created a self-sustaining domain where he is the undisputed master.
He takes the absolute rejection and just builds an empire out of it. And eventually the outside world breaches that empire. But not just anyone. The highest echelons of human society.
Of course. It's always the royals.
Yep. 2 different kings on 2 separate occasions get hopelessly lost in this massive forest. They hear the bagpipe music, and they send their servants to investigate.
We see this intersection constantly in folklore. The human world of law, hierarchy, and rigid order stumbles into the wild, untamed magic of the forest.
And suddenly, all that human power and military might mean absolutely nothing.
The kings are entirely helpless without him.
Exactly. So Hans looks down from his tree and makes the exact same bargain with both kings. He says, I will safely guide you out of the forest, but in exchange, you must sign a promise giving me the first thing that meets you at the royal court when you return.
The first thing that greets you. It is the most dangerous blank check in all of fairy tale lore.
It really is.
And it almost invariably ends up being the king's beloved child.
Which is exactly what happens. But the kings handle it very differently. King 1 looks at this weird little animal boy in a tree and thinks he's just a stupid beast. King 1 assumes the creature can't read.
Huge mistake.
Huge. So he deliberately writes a fake promise on the paper. He lies. He gets home, his beautiful daughter runs out to greet him, and he tells her about the trick he played. And the text specifically notes that the daughter is glad her father tricked him.
Yeah, because she never would have gone with such a creature anyway.
Exactly. Here's where it gets really interesting. I always wonder why the powerful people in these stories, like King 1, assume they can just outsmart the weird forest creature.
Because King One represents the civilized, bureaucratic world. You have to remember, during the time these oral traditions were being codified by the Grimms, society was transitioning.
Transitioning how?
It was moving from an older world where a man's spoken word and honor were absolute to a modern world governed by written law, lawyers, and physical ink and paper.
Oh, so the paper contract was like new, scary thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
The lower classes, who were mostly illiterate, were terrified of this. They were constantly being exploited by educated elites who used written contracts to trick them. So King One thinks his literacy makes him untouchable. He relies on the physical paper to exploit the outcast.
But he's playing by the wrong set of rules.
Exactly. In the logic of the fairy tale universe, a spoken supernatural contract is absolute. The universe doesn't care what you forged on the paper. It cares what bargain you struck with your breath. King One's hubris just blinds him to the very real power of the marginalized.
Contrast that with King Two. He gets lost, makes the exact same deal with Hans, but King Two acts honorably. He signs the real promise.
He respects the deal.
He gets home, his daughter runs to greet him, and when he tells her the truth, she is devastated. But she agrees to go with the creature whenever he comes to claim her, strictly for the sake of her father's honor.
That contrast between the two kings reveals a massive historical anxiety about honor versus deceit.
And Hans is about to show them exactly how much power he has. Armed with these two contracts, Hans decides he has sat in that tree long enough. He rides his shod rooster back to human civilization.
Here we go.
But he doesn't just quietly knock on the door. He starts with a display of overwhelming economic dominance at his childhood home.
The return of the repressed.
He sends word to his village to empty every single pigsty. He brings back his massive herd from the forest. And there are so many pigs that when the village starts butchering them, the sound of the slaughter and the chopping can be heard 2 hours away.
That is an intensely visceral, loud sensory detail.
It is. He floods his former community with wealth, has his trusty rooster shod one last time at the blacksmith, and tells his father he is leaving and will never return for the rest of his life.
He essentially buys his permanent freedom. He repays his father's 8 years of neglect with this, like, overabundance of resources, severing that familial tie completely.
The debt is paid. He owes them nothing.
Nothing at all.
Now, he rides his rooster to the realm of King One the Liar. The king knows he's coming, so he orders his soldiers to shoot, hack, and stab anyone arriving on a rooster playing the bagpipes.
They literally thrust bayonets at him.
They do.
Yeah.
But Hans simply gives his rooster the spurs, flies right over the gates, lands at the king's window, and threatens to take their lives if they don't honor the deal.
Because the military defenses of the bureaucratic kingdom are completely useless against a force of nature that operates on the ancient laws of the forest.
So the king is terrified. He surrenders his daughter, they put her in a lavish 6-horse carriage, and Hans rides next to her. The king probably thinks he got away with it, like she's gone, but at least she's alive.
Right, he thinks the worst is over.
But once they are a good distance outside the city, Hans enacts his revenge. He forces the princess out of the carriage, strips her bare, and uses his hedgehog quills to prick her until she is completely covered in blood.
It is shocking.
He looks at her and says, "This is the reward for your falseness. Go away, I don't want you."
Yeah.
And he sent her back to her father, disgraced. So what does this all mean?
Well, it's a completely visceral moment of violence that upends the usual dynamic of a fairy tale hero.
Okay, hold on. I'm stuck on something here. King One is the one who forged the document. He's the one who made the lying promise. Why is the princess the one left bloodied by the side of the road? Isn't that a wildly disproportionate punishment for the sins of her father?
It definitely feels incredibly jarring to our modern sensibilities,
Mm-hmm.
but remember that vital detail the Grimms included. When the father returned and confessed his trickery, the princess was glad about the deception.
Oh, right. She celebrated it.
She celebrated the broken contract because it maintained her comfort and status. In the moral universe of this folklore, that makes her fully complicit. She benefited from the corruption. But look closer at the mechanism of the punishment itself.
He uses his quills.
The very physical trait that made him an outcast as a baby, the reason he couldn't nurse, the reason his parents wouldn't put him in a bed, the reason he was shoved behind a stove, those quills have literally become his weapons of retribution.
Wow.
He weaponizes his deformity against a deceitful society. It's a brutal, uncompromising demand for respect. The symbolism is inescapable. You rejected me for what I am, and now you will bleed by what I am.
That reframes the entire scene for me. It isn't just random chaotic cruelty. It's a deeply symbolic turning of the tables. The punishment is tailor-made to reflect the initial rejection. Having delivered this bloody justice, Hans gets back on his rooster, plays his bagpipes, and travels to the Second Kingdom, the kingdom of the Honorable King II. And this leads to his final, profound evolution.
The contrast when he crosses that border is just night and day.
Hans arrives, and because King II gave strict orders to honor the deal, the soldiers present their weapons in salute. They shout, "Vivat! Long live the king!" and they escort him in.
The princess is terrified of him, obviously.
Right, he is still a spiked, half-animal creature, but she honors her promise. She sits by him at the banquet, and eventually she goes to the bridal chamber with him.
She feels the visceral fear of the unknown, but her integrity overrides her prejudice. She honors the spoken word.
And here's where the story shifts gears into magic. Before they go to sleep, Hans instructs the old king to place 4 armed guards outside the bedroom door and to build a massive fire.
This part is so intense.
He tells them that at exactly 11 o'clock, he is going to shed his hedgehog skin. When he does, the guards must rush in, grab the skin, and throw it into the fire until it's completely destroyed.
It's a highly specific ritual.
11 o'clock strikes. Hans slips out of the animal skin. The guards rush in, toss it in the flames, and it burns. Hans is finally freed from the curse. He is entirely human-shaped, but there is a catch.
There's always a catch.
He is pitch black, as if he has been badly burned in a fire. The king immediately calls for his personal doctor, who washes Hans with special salves and balsams until the blackness fades, and he is revealed as a white, handsome young man.
The ritual of transformation is complete, but the details of how it happens are just so crucial.
That's what I want to dig into. We've seen the shedding the animal skin trope 100 times in folklore.
Yep.
But why does he turn pitch black, and why does he need a doctor's ointment? Usually the magic fire just instantly reveals a flawless Prince Charming.
Because instantaneous perfection would be too easy. And this story is fundamentally about the hard-won reality of integration.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Shedding the trauma of his past isn't a neat, painless magic trick. The burning of the skin is a literal and metaphorical trial by fire. He is liberated from his animal form, but he is scarred by the process. He is pitch black, marked by the heat of the transformation and all those years of agonizing isolation.
That makes so much sense.
And this points to a profound insight. Magic alone isn't enough to fully heal him. The fact that a human doctor, a man of science and human medicine, must step in and use physical salves to soothe and restore his skin, it shows that to finally be integrated into the human race, Hans requires human care.
He needs to be tended to by the very society that once threw him behind a stove.
Precisely. The magic breaks the curse, but human empathy and human effort heal the man.
The story wraps up from there. Hans marries the princess, inherits the kingdom from the Honorable King II, and years later he actually travels back to his childhood village.
Coming full circle.
He finds his old father, reveals his true identity as this wealthy, powerful king, and brings his finally proud father back to live in his kingdom.
It's a total reversal of fortune, achieved entirely on his own terms.
When you look at the complete arc of Hans Mein-Eigel, it's a staggering journey. It's a story of a rejected half-animal boy who survives unspeakable neglect.
Yeah.
He uses radical self-reliance, building his own surreal empire in the trees with a bagpipe and a rooster. He relies on a rigid adherence to the law of contracts, and he dishes out uncompromising, violent justice to carve out a place in a world that tried to discard him.
When you really think about it, this isn't just a 200-year-old story about a hedgehog. Think about your own life, when you've been pushed to the margins of your workplace, your industry, or, even your family.
This universal feeling.
It is. It forces you to consider the immense resilience it takes to build your own domain when the established world rejects you. It highlights the profound difference between people who honor their word even when it costs them and those who rely on deceit and arrogance to maintain their comfort.
It's a stark reminder that the universe keeps the receipts. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the economics of medieval pigs to bloody vengeance in magical dermatology. But there's one final thought I want to leave you with, something that builds on everything we've unpacked today.
Let's hear it.
We talked about how Hans used his quills, the very deformity that made him an outcast, the reason he couldn't be held or loved as a child. He didn't hide them. He turned those quills into his ultimate weapons to enforce his will and demand respect from a corrupt king.
It's a powerful image.
It makes you wonder, when you look at your own life, what deformity or weird quirk do you have? What is that one strange thing about your personality, your background, or your way of thinking that society currently dismisses or tells you to hide behind the stove. Because if Hans my Hedgehog teaches us anything, it's that the very thing that makes you an outcast could actually become your greatest superpower if you just learn how to wield it.